Welcome to this Packet podcast with me, Helen Kimaru, and my co host, Patrick Chandiga. We are so elated for you to be here, and we hope you've enjoyed some of our previous episodes. And on today's episode, like the last one we did, we are gonna be discussing a life changing decision that one makes that, you know, either realigns their life or leads to other life changing experiences for them, and how that looks like for Patrick. Patrick, thank you for joining us today. Maybe you can say
You're
something.
most welcome. You're most welcome. Very happy to be here.
Yes, that's very, very good. Maybe before we get started and maybe like take a deep dive into our topic today, because today we are focusing specifically on your experience and what the decision was, what it looked like for you, and the impact this decision had on your life and the people around you. Maybe you could tell us maybe some fun fact about you, something that people don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe something that people might not know very much about me is that I am a person who really loves gadgets, like electronics.
Mm-hmm.
I am deep into electronics. I love those stuff.
Uh-huh.
Whether it be phones, laptops,
Uh-huh.
or recording equipment or stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. I
Uh-huh.
love those. Like they are the things I think I buy most, whether it be the
Mhm.
speakers, what like so much into electronics. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you
But
do you uh-huh. Sorry.
I think that for people who have been around me like longer,
Mhm.
they know that this is something that is a huge part of me. I don't know if that is a
Uh-huh.
fun fact, but yeah.
Interesting. So should we assume that you are one of those guys who usually has like the latest iPhone, or at least when it drops you are like among the people who are like, yeah, I should get this one.
Uh, I mean, I don't know whether that would be a very good characterization of me,
Uh-huh.
particularly. But I know for sure that I love gadgets that
Mhm.
high end.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. You people
Yeah.
know what to get you for your next birthday then. You should drop
Yeah.
an Amazon wish list.
Oh my God. Yeah, I would do that. And actually,
Mhm.
you have reminded me of this. My last birthday,
Mhm.
on the 20th, and I remember you had reached out, I think during my birthday, and
Mhm.
you were like, "What can I get for you for your birthday?"
I know. Oh yeah.
And I
Tell them
remember
what
telling
happened.
you,
Mhm.
I remember telling you that I wanted, because I mean honestly, you were like, "Just tell me what I can get you for your birthday." I was like, "This is the opportune time I've been waiting my whole life, someone to ask you that question,
Uh-huh.
and you came along."
Mhm. Yeah, your list definitely it needs good money. Yeah, I think we are gonna put it somewhere for, if anyone feels like they can buy you a gadget, especially recording equipment and stuff like that, that would be amazing.
For sure, 100%. You remember what I asked from you when you asked
Mhm.
me? Yeah.
I think the one thing that has been on top of your list has been like this very, like a really good camera. I don't remember which exact type it was,
Yes.
but you want a
Yes.
camera. Yes.
Yes. Yes. And what I asked from you that
Uh-huh.
day was that I needed the latest MacBook. It had just come out like
Oh, yes,
A
yes. Oh, yeah.
week.
No, yeah, now I remember. Yeah. Guys, please, he needs a MacBook, the latest one for that matter. Please.
Oh man. Yeah, I
But
remember
but
it
that,
had
but
just
that's good
come out
taste.
like
Mm?
I remember it had just come out like a weekend. You called like, yes,
It's
now is the
finally
time to
happening.
get it. Yes.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I disappointed in as much as I did ask, but yeah,
Oh
we'll
no,
hope for
I
better this time. Mm?
for sure.
Interesting,
I mean, I am
interesting.
still waiting for it. It's not like
Huh?
you said you were not going to provide it.
Are you still hopeful that I'll get you that?
Well, you said it. It's not me.
Oh, 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 oh. I'm not so sure if somebody's putting words in my mouth, but anyway, yeah, that will happen. It will happen this year for sure.
Okay, fingers crossed.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That's an interesting fact, yeah. So for those people who didn't know, Patrick is into high-end gadgets, electronics, the good stuff, the good life. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
If you put it that way, it doesn't sound good.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah. Anyway, so in our last episode, we did sort of like a deep dive into my experience with a life changing decision that happened, not because I necessarily took it from the very beginning, but for me, it was
Hmm.
more of one decision or one action that led to, a spiral of more decisions being made, and whatever happened, and eventually how that kind of shaped what my life looked like.
Right,
So today I would like to ask you the same question so that we can sort of get like a deep dive into your own personal story and your journey.
right,
So what
right.
what is this life changing decision that you made at some point that has sort of maybe that changed the trajectory of your life, either positively or negatively? Could you probably just share with our listeners and viewers what that has been or what it has looked like?
Yeah, for sure. I actually think that I have a lot that I could talk about, to be honest. Like,
Mm-hmm.
at least decisions that in my own mind would fit the classification of like
Mm-hmm.
a major life changing decision. But
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, the most significant from
Mm-hmm.
amongst all of them
Mm-hmm.
would be quitting our family business
Mm-hmm.
and then starting an NGO from that. I
Oh,
think
wow.
for me, that would be like the most significant decision that I made.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I've been like, so we we have this family business, which is a photo studio,
Mm-hmm.
uh, a studio that does both photography and videography and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been engaged like in this for a very long time. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think I started engaging there in 2010.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it's like I've been there working on photos and stuff like that. And it's not like even I was at first allowed to work there.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had this uncle of mine uh, who was really good, and we had this very good relationship with. And
Mm-hmm.
so he would teach me uh, Adobe Photoshop
Oh, wow.
at night. Yeah,
Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I was
Interesting.
going to school during that time. So I
Uh-huh.
could not like technically be there like every time during the day
Ah.
to
Mm-hmm.
learn this stuff and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was really curious, I really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to learn.
Mhm.
how to use the software to make all these amazing photos and graphics and things like that. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I requested him to teach me, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that, but you would
Interesting.
have to come here and
Mhm.
sleep here, and then I'll
Oh
teach you
wow.
at night." Yeah.
Ish.
So yeah, so during the day, school; during
Mhm.
the night, learning Adobe
Mhm.
Photoshop.
Oh wow. Was this when you were in high school?
Yes.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like a lot of dedication for a high school student. At what time are you doing your homework?
It's like it's really, yeah, I mean, because I used to be at school anyway, depending,
Mm-hmm.
but mostly it used to be like from 7, say, in the morning up
Okay.
to 4. Yeah, and then it's usually like from Monday to Fridays. So
Mm-hmm.
most times we don't have schools like on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So I made sure that I was doing that. So imagine
Mm-hmm.
balancing that like with the school notes that you have to read and things like that. Because again,
Mm-hmm.
you need to pass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I
Uh-huh.
this this relative of mine was really gracious,
Mm-hmm.
and he taught me. I always sat there and watched everything he was doing, and eventually I
Mm-hmm.
learned how to actually use the software.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and so I would be there
Mm-hmm.
only like trying out stuff or working on some pictures sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but only when the others are not there, when
Mm-hmm.
it was only him and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes like we could be operating the studio, and it would be only the two of us, and he would be like, "Yeah, work on these photos,"
Oh
and so I would
wow.
work on them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
um and then this one day, because I was just doing that without the knowledge of the owner of the studio, and
Mm-hmm.
one day I was found on it, and I was like, "Ooh, oh, it wasn't good."
Oh wow. Oh, so the studio didn't belong to your uncle.
No, it did.
Oh,
My uncle owned the studio,
okay.
but the one who was training me was not the one who owned the studio.
Oh,
he's
I
the
see, I
he's
see.
the one
Okay, okay. Makes
managing
a lot
it.
of sense. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. So he was the one managing it.
Ah. So what
Yeah,
does
and
your
he,
uncle tell you at this point?
oh no, he told me to never be there again.
Really?
Like, yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah, yeah, to not be there again. And of course, I didn't listen. I kept
You are a
learning.
rebel.
You could say that, yeah. I guess like
Uh-huh.
I had this burning fire to really um learn this software. I really wanted to know how to use it. I
Mm-hmm.
even didn't know like where I was going to apply this knowledge, to be honest. I mean, I had no computer. It's not like I had it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, I still kept learning and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I became good
Mm-hmm.
in the process. Um, I became so good that one of the brothers of also my uncle
Mm-hmm.
discovered one day when I was working on some pictures, and he found they were so good. And he was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yo, actually, you should come like every evening and join us in working here and so forth."
Oh wow.
And I was good. And then I did that for like, I don't know, some weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner of the studio again found me there one time, and he was not happy. He
Oh
told
wow.
you not
Uh-huh.
to be here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but the other two uncles of mine tried to convince me. So like, he's actually really good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was okay, you know. He didn't really see me or see my work to be able, you know. He was just like, you know, you're a kid, you shouldn't be here and
Mm.
stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which is understandable as a parent and a guardian. So
Mhm.
yeah, and so I left, but still kept coming again.
You still found your way in. You couldn't stay away.
Oh no, I couldn't. I
Mhm.
couldn't. Yeah. Yeah, but and then one day he landed on really, really quality products.
Mhm.
Uh, that even him, although he had the knowledge, he hadn't produced anything like it.
Oh wow.
So he asks like who worked on this and stuff. And they were like, oh, Patrick did actually. And I
Interesting.
wasn't there like when they were having that conversation. It was now one of
Uh-huh.
my uncles telling me. I was like,
Uh-huh.
whoa, these are really good.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then he was like, you know what? Let him keep coming.
Wow. The transition.
So I know that was the
Uh-huh.
transition.
Mhm.
And then yeah, I basically started going there often to like work there. Excuse me.
It's fine.
Yeah, so I started going there very often to work there because now I didn't have to hide or something.
Mhm.
I had the freedom to now display
Uh-huh.
my graphic skills and my
Uh-huh.
business skills and just put them out there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I think it really got good. And eventually I just became part of the team. At one point also managing the studio.
Mhm.
It's something. Yeah, and I think I did that for like I don't know, over 6 years,
Oh
close to
wow.
7 years. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. And then when the war happened in South
Mhm.
Sudan,
Mhm.
we had to go to Uganda, of course, and we sought refuge there. And
Mhm.
we moved the stuff there for the
Oh,
studio and then set up the studio that side. But what
okay.
happened was, I don't know, I reached a certain point in 2017. I was like, I am tired, man.
Mhm.
Um, I w- I was tired, and so I basically decided to quit.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I just quit because I
Mhm.
don't know. It felt like I got. I think what the first displacement made me realize was that
Mhm.
I had been working at this place for quite a long time now,
Mhm.
but I didn't really see how much it had contributed towards achieving some of the goals I had set for myself.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I felt like, you know what? I think I'm not achieving what I wanted to achieve, and this
Mhm.
place is
Mhm.
not contributing enough. So yeah, I had to
Mhm.
quit, and that was it. I think,
Wow.
and then went on to start a non-governmental organization.
Interesting. I think before we get to now you starting the non-governmental organization, I would like to say,
Yeah,
looking at your story and how you are
yeah,
sneaking in into the studio and all that, it kind of speaks to the role that parents and guardians have in sort of shaping who we become. It's sort
yeah,
of like really key because the more you encourage like young people or kids or people
yeah,
in your circle, if you're a parent or something like that,
yeah,
if you encourage them to do something and maybe to embrace a skill, they'll become good at it. So I think maybe you are the uncles who are standing up for you and they're like, yeah, he's really good. I think they did amazing because eventually you continued being really good. I know I've seen your work. It's true. So yeah, so so I think that the role
Thank
they
you.
play as guardians and the sort of mentorship you get from the people around you, it can definitely shape like either the skills you get or
Yeah,
a mindset shift or something like that. So what are maybe you should tell us what are these goals you had set for yourself that at that point before you started your NGO you felt like you had not achieved.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the things that after finishing high school, or at least the things that I had as goals while in high school, was to immediately go to university and enroll
Mm-hmm.
basically for a law program. Because I had
Low.
this, yeah,
Interesting. Uh-huh.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know, yeah. So, yeah, I basically really worked hard. Like, even when I
Mm-hmm.
was in school, I really made sure that I checked all the requirements for law school
Mm-hmm.
um, of the schools, mostly those in South Sudan.
Mm-hmm.
And, and by the time I was sitting for my exam, I was
Mm-hmm.
very familiar of the requirements for each university, the
Mm-hmm.
grades you need and everything like that. And so I went sitting
Mm-hmm.
for these exams knowing I need to get the least this marks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I was determined to make sure I got the grades that can allow me to get into that program.
Oh, wow.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I did. Yeah,
Interesting.
uh, yeah, I did. And so the next
Mm-hmm.
thing was to go to law school, and now that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
so it
the
didn't happen because of the war?
well, no, not exactly. I mean, the war partly contributed to it, but
Okay.
I think at this point, the resources I had needed to be able to um, go to school, and especially law school, which was very expensive,
Mm-hmm.
the resources I needed were lacking.
Okay.
And so, one of the things I had set for myself was to, one, either get a scholarship, two,
Mm-hmm.
raise the funds myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to try the scholarship path. It wasn't going anywhere for some reason. And I was like, okay, you know what? I will go the working path, try to raise
Mm-hmm.
these resources myself. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I wasn't seeing my work contributing really much towards me raising the resources I needed to go to school.
Oh, wow.
And then when the war happened, even
Mm-hmm.
that became worse.
Was that? Ah,
Yeah, yeah. So if I were to continue maybe doing that, I don't know, it would take me, I don't know,
forever.
maybe, yeah, to be able to
I know,
raise
I
the
know what
resources
you
I
mean.
needed to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, no. And then I basically quit it. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. So at this point, the war happens. You guys move the studio to Uganda. You realize you're not achieving your goals. You can probably use that job to raise the funds you need to go to law school. And so, what sort of sparks your interest now to start an ungovernmental organization?
Well, so and maybe even before that, something that I really have to clarify is that the the studio, much as
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't giving me the financial resources that I was hoping would be able to give me
Mm-hmm.
to help me maybe enroll in school and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
think it really gave me the opportunity to work with so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I learned uh, teamwork way early.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to work under pressure way early.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have days that we have clients from morning,
Mm-hmm.
literally like super early in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like into 11 p.m., even 12 p.m., we still have clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had days where I'm literally seated working on this stuff from morning till night. till
Oh wow.
morning the next day. Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
I think that it has taught me to be able to work under pressure
Mm-hmm.
and to do that in a super disciplined way. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that really like and also the skills, to be honest, especially
Mm-hmm.
with the use of like computer and so forth. I think that what happened is that it gave me access to like computers, like printers, like stuff. These are all things
Mm-hmm.
like I'm super knowledgeable about, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is because of the studio and the exposure that it gave me,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and this love for gadgets and well, I think it was born from that.
It started there. There's a beginning.
Yeah, it kind of
Uh-huh.
like rekindled that fire. I think it was just like inside me, and the studio
Mm-hmm.
just sparked it.
Sparked it.
Yes,
That's interesting. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So um, the the studio kind of like I think gave me a super strong foundation that I could
Mm.
use, whether it
Mm-hmm.
being in writing or communication and stuff like that. Because we're always dealing with customers. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the things like you got to learn how to communicate with people.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think like it gave me that, and so I was able to use these transferable skills
Mm-hmm.
that it gave me to be able to apply them somewhere else in a
Mm-hmm.
field different
Mm-hmm.
than a studio and something like that. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
regarding the motivation to start like an NGO, I really wouldn't pin that on like one thing to be honest,
Okay.
because how it happened, I never saw it coming
Oh
at
wow.
all.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because when I quit the photo studio,
Mm-hmm.
I basically focused more on engaging with the church. Yeah, I was more like
Ah.
with the church and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. I
Mm-hmm.
love evangelism. For people who
Mm-hmm.
know me, I love evangelism. That's like my
Uh-huh.
thing. And even now, I
Mm-hmm.
still love it. I think that's
Yeah,
something that I
I
want to
told
be
you the
able to
other
do
day,
more.
you're a fisher of men. Yeah, I see where it stems from.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was very much engaged with that. And so there was this one day I got into the settlement, I don't know, and then I got exposed to things that I think are um, not super good.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see really like violence being inflicted on some people just
Mm-hmm.
because they are from a different um, like ethnic group,
Mm-hmm.
and it was devastating to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was so much hate. I think it's because of some of the ideas revolving the war in South Sudan when it started out in
Mm-hmm.
2013. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think there was really this hatred that um, emerged because of whatever has happened, where
Mm-hmm.
basically communities hate each other and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And so some particular communities are seen as like the reason why people are displaced and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was
Mm-hmm.
this kind of like targeted violence against certain
Mm-hmm.
communities. Yeah, and I
Mm-hmm.
got to witness that, and it was horrible. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was very horrible. But of course, I didn't know what to do about it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, until I came across a program that was basically raising awareness on
Mm-hmm.
all of this hate,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to learn more about it, and it kind of like uh, made me realize
Mm-hmm.
that what I was seeing or what I had seen
Mm-hmm.
was deeper than just someone hitting the other. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was like deeper than that, and so
Mm-hmm.
I thought I would want to contribute towards. resolving that, finding solutions, lasting solutions to it, and yeah, at some point I found ways to basically contribute to that through like having conversations with people in schools
Mm,
and things like that. Got to
mhm.
invitations, they'd be like, "Oh, you can't do that here. You have to be registered," and
Ah.
understandably so, because yeah,
Mhm.
I think the government too, the Ugandan government too, and
Mhm.
this is understandable. I think they're worried about basically random people going to speak to, you know,
Yeah.
like schools and so forth. What messages are you
Mhm.
spreading and things like that.
Ah, like they
So
who would they hold accountable?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, something like that. So yeah,
Mhm.
and I think like that was where we saw the need to register because the important work that I was doing with my friends to do with raising awareness on hate and ethnic violence and stuff like that.
Mm.
We couldn't really do it at a much larger scale
Mhm.
without the registration bit of it. And so we thought, okay, the best way is to um, register as a community based organization. And that was how the community empowerment for creative innovations, CECI Uganda was born.
Mhm. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite a journey. I mean, like you leave your job, you become an evangelist, or you are continuing with your evangelism work. You talk to people,
Yeah,
and it's sad to know that all this violence is happening in South Sudan. People are displaced, and it doesn't matter where you are. Somebody has already carried that seed. The seed was planted.
right.
The hate continues
Yeah,
regardless of where somebody is. So maybe to just go back to that, is this
yes.
something you are experiencing both online and offline, or how did that look like?
Well, I think for me, I hadn't experienced it personal online.
Mm-hmm.
I know so many people who did,
Mm-hmm.
who actually um, experienced like hate, really targeted hate content that are targeted towards them, or people just basically reach out to them and say a lot of bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas I have not experienced that kind of targeted online violence and
Mm-hmm.
hate directed at myself, I have
Mm-hmm.
seen I've seen people propagate such hate against my community and other communities, like
Mm-hmm.
online. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like very divisive messaging that is aimed at dividing people and
Mm-hmm.
at inciting violence
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that online, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and offline is where I've experienced the actual physical bit of it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
horrible. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and seeing that was just
Mm-hmm.
devastating. You know, we had a case,
Mm-hmm.
and this actually happened in a refugee settlement,
Mm-hmm.
Rhino camp, and I think this was in, if my memory serves me well, it was in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
We had this case where some young people went to watch uh, football. You know, it's like this
Mm-hmm.
European football,
Yeah.
and I think they had a sharp disagreement regarding the
Mhm.
game. It's not even a game that was being played in the Saturday or something. It's like in
Yeah,
Europe, man.
I know,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, they had a
Mhm,
disagreement over it.
mhm,
Uh, and I think to do with the seat and something like that, and it resulted into serious violence, and
mhm.
I think 4 people or more died in the process.
Wow.
Yeah,
Ooh, that's a big number.
I know.
Damn.
Yeah,
So at this point, it's like people are looking for things that can trigger them. It's no longer about the football match. It's about like the deep rooted either hate or something like that. So it's easy when you're triggered.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, like something I said earlier on, is that
Mm-hmm.
the war had created these tense relations between communities, and it has
Mm-hmm.
made some communities see each other as enemies
Mm-hmm.
rather than as just all one
Mm-hmm.
huge South Sudanese community. People now are more like divided
Yeah.
on tribal lines and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so there is already an underlying um, hatred, deep rooted
Mm-hmm.
hate against other people that is just waiting to be triggered. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like what that match did or whatever the other person did that angered one of those people basically was what it did is it only triggered something that was already there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah. It's
Hey,
crazy.
it's actually crazy to know that this whole tribal thing kind of runs like you're from South Sudan, I'm from Kenya,
Yeah,
and it's like we are all facing similar issues on different
mhm,
levels, but the tribal ethnic thing, it's still there. And I believe right now Kenyans are really trying to work on that, because I feel like
yeah,
the
yeah,
political class have sort of made it a thing that they use against people, so that probably they can
yeah,
get into power. So they try to tell you, um things shouldn't be like this person is bad, but on a normal
yeah.
day I live with everyone. It doesn't matter who you
Right.
probably live in an apartment where there's like all tribes represented, and every day you're saying hello
Yeah,
to each other. But then one day somebody
yeah,
tells you like this person is bad and you just believe it, and then you start hating them for what?
yeah. And I think honestly, what happened, I
Mm-hmm.
think is not different
Mm-hmm.
from what you just spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
But tribes and clashes and things like that in Kenya, I think it was
Mm-hmm.
very much like motivated and fueled with the divisive and discriminative politics that
Mm-hmm.
aimed at creating divisions. I think
Mm-hmm.
they call it sectarian politics or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Interesting. Oh wow. Okay, so now you're in Uganda, you've done all this evangelism, and you become a peace builder, and the government is like, nah, we want to see your papers. Are you registered or not? You decide now it's time, and now you go ahead and register CECI. At this point, what do you want to do with the organization that you register apart from, say, your efforts to bring people together, to address hate speech, and some bit of peace building? So what's like really your other goals with CECI at this point when you did the registration?
So honestly, like the the goals that we ended up, at least the goals that drove the formulation of CECI Uganda at that point,
Mm-hmm.
was something that was very personal to myself
Mm-hmm.
and also
Mm-hmm.
very personal to the friends and team that we had at the earliest point of formulating CECI.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one of our objectives really focuses more on promoting access to formal and informal education
Mm-hmm.
for refugees. And
Interesting.
this is really hugely informed by the realities that
Mm-hmm.
so many refugees have gone through and what is
Mm-hmm.
actually also happening, like in the
Mm-hmm.
refugee settlement. Like
Mm-hmm.
from a personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
So my my grandparents
Mm-hmm.
um, got displaced. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was probably in the 80s, like in the first war.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, the Anyanya war, or no, I think SPLM war. Yeah,
Mm.
and they got displaced,
Mm-hmm.
and so they had to. go to Uganda and become refugees and things like that.
Mhm.
And I think that was where for the most part, at least part of my parents were raised up.
Mhm.
And at one point, they moved back, and that was where my dad and my mom met.
Interesting. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I guess
Mhm.
my mom and my dad were like, I found mine is here, and I was like,
Oh, my ride or die.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I think they met each other
Mhm.
after returning
Mhm.
from Uganda to
Mhm.
South Sudan, where they also lived for really a very short time, to be honest. Um,
Mhm.
and then they were displaced again by another war.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think at this point, my mom and my dad had met, they were married, they had me in the stomach, and
Interesting. Look at you. All right. Uh-huh. This is interesting. Mhm.
yeah, I think it was like 1994,
Mhm.
probably around there,
Mhm.
and yeah, they had to move. They were forced to move, so they had to go back to Uganda as refugees and something like that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and yeah, they did, and that was where some of us were born with my siblings and other stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
And they went back, and again, the same thing happened with me. So when you look at this, it's
Mhm.
three generations
Mhm.
that have consistently been displaced. And in the process, what has happened is they have experienced like huge educational disruptions that have left
Mm.
most of them without
Mhm.
access to the education they so
Mm.
desperately needed.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and they were deprived of education by the war. Um,
Mhm.
and the same thing that happened to them and my parents is the same thing that also happened to us. The war came
Mhm.
in, some of us were just, going to school and stuff like that, and that was also disrupted.
Mhm.
And in the refugee settlement, it was more or less not different, to be honest. Much as there
Mhm.
is access to education,
Mhm.
and thanks to all the partners and donors and governments that are supporting those efforts, I think they're really, really important. And it's
Mhm.
good that the people who are helping do that, uh,
Mhm.
they are probably not, we could say, not offering the best education. Like it is good,
Mm. Mhm.
but it's not the best quality.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
Which
you have
sometimes.
cases where classes,
Mhm.
uh-huh.
Sorry.
Now it's
No,
like you
does
have
it
cases where
sometimes feel like
basically
an
classes are not.
afterthought?
No, not exactly. No, I wouldn't think I wouldn't think that way. I think that it's not really like an afterthought,
Mhm.
but it's that the resources they have
Uh.
are very limited that cannot really allow them to deliver, let's say, the standard of or the quality of education that maybe
Mhm.
a child studying in Kampala is receiving for a refugee child.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. When you
Mm.
look at the facilities that maybe a child in Kampala is studying in to the ones that someone in the refugee settlement
Mhm.
um, is studying in is quite different.
Mm.
And the same thing goes for, let's say, the equipment
Mhm.
uh, that you need, for example, for especially people who take like sciences, for
Yeah.
practicals and things like that. It's very
Mhm.
limited. The same thing goes for the books. The same thing
Mhm.
goes for just the seats. And so
Ah.
you find some people attending classes and
Mhm.
others are seated and then others are just standing
Mm.
because there are not enough seats and things like that. So yeah, the quality is definitely like not the best. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
what happens is that because of some of this stuff, so
Mhm.
you find some refugee children dropping
Mhm.
out of school and
Mhm.
rather opting for either marriage or opting to return to South Sudan.
Mhm.
And in worst cases, some opting to just, return back to the country and then join the uh, whatever's going on, whether it being
Okay.
the government or maybe
Mhm.
the the oppositions or whatever. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So you see like
Wow.
all of this, and so for us, we wanted to come in and see ways we can
Mhm.
improve access to education for some of these people that um, are really like dissatisfied with what is happening there, or some who have finished, for example, maybe with their high school and they want to be able to
Mhm.
go to university. They do not have the resources because most often scholarships are not available that can cover everyone. They are always limited.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so most people are always left out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, and the same thing goes
Mhm.
um, for high school. There are some people that just to be able to get the best, they want to be able to maybe go and study in a better school, maybe somewhere
Mm.
out
Mhm.
of the settlement. And so that's where we come in.
Mm.
Yeah, providing the scholarships that can allow them to either go to
Mhm.
university or go to high school or go to access some vocational training. Uh, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
That's really impressive. So it's like uh so from what I've heard, it's like what your grandparents, your parents went through, sort of like those gaps that were there that were not filled. At this point, you've already, even yourself, you've already experienced the intermittent kind of, today you're in school, tomorrow is so
yeah,
unknown. Or maybe you've gone to a school, or maybe the people who went through this war and they have,
yeah,
been displaced to Uganda, the
yeah,
kids don't get the opportunities they need, or if they get the opportunity, it's not as adequate because of the limited resources. So at this point,
yeah,
from what I hear, it's like it sort of informs your decision, and you're like, I want to fill this gap using CECI. uh
yes.
so uh that's really impressive, honestly. So at this point, are you working with students that, like, the scholarships you're offering, are you working with students in high school, students who are out of school, or like what's like sort of your target group with this education that you are, the kind of gap you're filling for these students? Who are you targeting
Uh,
specifically?
so when we started,
Mm-hmm.
we mostly focused on out of school children.
Ah.
Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
was mostly the focus, and the focus was mostly on refugees. But I think
Mm-hmm.
over time, um, our target demographic has expanded a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So now we are able to provide scholarships to out of school children, some special case children, like for example orphans. But we're
Mm-hmm.
also able to provide now scholarships to both refugees and host community members because there's some host community members that
Mhm,
really can't afford to go to school, and that's because of that. Some of them like have been out for so many years, and
mhm,
so we come in and then give them a second chance
mhm,
at education.
mhm.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I think so far
That
it has been great. Yeah,
mhm,
and this honestly has been possible because of our partners.
mhm,
So I think our partners really have been incredibly supportive in helping us expand.
mhm.
Um, yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I think the work you're doing at CECI is very impressive. And knowing that at that point, it's like you put your interests and your goals aside, and you are like, I'm gonna do this for the community. I think that's like sort of very, it's actually not sort of, it's very inspiring. I would say I'm very inspired today.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I was looking at the work you've done with CECI. You also like do, apart from education, you do like peace building, you
Yes.
do, you're addressing climate change. Could you probably talk about some of these other programs that you have at CECI?
Yeah, for sure. I would actually say that the work that is most synonymous with the CECI Uganda is peace building.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Again, coming back from what I said earlier about the violence, the refugee settlement that is targeted,
Mhm.
um, some ethnic groups and things like that. That kind of intercommunal violence.
Mhm.
Uh, so part of our work is basically working to promote peaceful coexistence
Mhm.
um, amongst the refugees and between the refugees and their host communities. And
Mhm.
our work has so much been focused on conflict prevention,
Mhm.
conflict resolution, and we work with the youth,
Mhm. Mhm.
women, and we work with refugees and their host communities. We work with the community leaders, the faith leaders, like work with all the stakeholders
Mhm.
uh, to make sure that our peace building initiatives, whether it
Mhm.
being
Mhm.
dialogues, whether it being sports events,
Mhm.
are really like something that are informed by the interests of all the stakeholders that
Mhm.
we deal with. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's
Interesting.
been wonderful. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's been really wonderful. I think for me,
Mhm.
when when I think about our peace building work,
Mhm.
probably I think the highlight for me and for my team members, they might disagree or something. But
Uh-huh.
I think for me, the
Mhm.
highlight was a peace building initiative that we
Mhm.
implemented with Oxfam
Mhm.
in 2019, where
Mhm.
we organized a football tournament. We called it a
Mhm.
peace
Mhm.
tournament.
Mhm.
And this was in Bidibidi refugee settlement in a zone
Mhm.
called Zone 3. And
Mhm.
so in that zone, particularly, there have been so many um, tournaments of a similar nature that have been
Mhm.
organized by
Mhm.
an international non-governmental organization, whom I will not mention the name here.
Mhm.
But
Uh-huh.
they are the ones in charge
Mhm.
of organizing like those kind of stuff which are related to protection and things like that.
Mhm.
And they did that, I think, for maybe 4 times or 5 times, where
Oh
they've
wow.
organized a tournament, and then
Mhm.
the tournament ends up in violence.
Oh,
Yeah, it never ends
okay.
successfully. It
Wow.
always like ended. Like they've had those very many
Mhm.
cases where it really didn't work.
Mhm.
And so, to their credit,
Mhm.
they were now super careful about the organization of such events.
Mhm.
Now, when we were coming in to organize those
Mhm.
events, we did have this background knowledge.
Uh-huh. Oh wow. Uh-huh.
So we go in, we start to organize these events and so forth. And then we get this report from one of these guys like, no, you cannot organize these events.
Mhm.
You need to do A, you need to do B, and so. And they were really trying their best to make sure we don't organize the events. They were more like
Ah.
they became more like a barrier, an obstacle that was
Mhm.
actually determined to make sure that we never overcome it.
Uh-huh.
So Yeah, we worked ourselves hard to come to a consensus.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, eventually we did come to a consensus, and they agreed us. They agreed that we could go ahead, organize the tournament, and we went straight to doing that. And so
Mhm.
we asked them about what was it that you guys did? What did you change? Like,
Mhm.
I think their own experiences
Mhm.
helped us in going back to the drawing board to see
Mhm.
what can we do different
Mm.
to make sure that it doesn't end up in shambles,
Mhm.
just like the ones they have had for all this time.
Uh-huh. Oh wow.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
yeah, we went to the drawing board. I now came in and said, okay, instead of us saying we're organizing this tournament, actually it should be the community organizing it. And
Ah,
so
good approach.
we come
Mhm.
in and we're just there like a facilitator rather than an
Mm.
organizer.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're just there to see, now develop the rules for the tournament,
Mhm.
develop the penalties for the tournament. If
Mhm.
someone does something wrong, how should they now develop? Like everything to do with organizing was entirely done by the
Mhm.
community. Our work
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
only to help them document. They're writing all
Ah.
their stuff there and so forth, and we'll just document for them and say, like, do you need it printed? They would be
Mhm.
like, yes, how many copies?
Mhm.
They would tell us. So that was the job we're doing. And they engaged the community leaders, they engaged all
Mm.
the youth, they engaged all the
Mhm.
referees, the
Mhm.
umpires, because it was like
Mhm.
involving both soccer
Mhm.
for men and for women. And so
Mhm.
they brought all these stakeholders in, and they really organized a super cool tournament. And we were just there as facilitators. Do you need uniforms? And
Mhm.
we're like, yeah.
Interesting. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we take that down. We get the uniforms, like we were literally working. They
Mhm.
weren't driving the agenda.
Ah.
Yeah, they were at the forefront of agenda setting for the whole thing,
Mhm.
and it worked out incredible
Mhm.
because uh, they chose who the referees should be. They chose who
Mhm.
uh, where the playgrounds are going to be. They chose how many teams should be there, where should they come from. Like
Mm.
everyone was involved. And then the tournament started and everything went
Yeah.
great. There was
Mhm.
no single act of violence.
Ah. That was like
First
a
time.
really good approach. I think I have
Yeah,
experienced a similar thing where sometimes
yeah,
you think like you know what people need, and maybe you
yeah,
go work somewhere and you are thinking, oh, this is a solution to their problem, without necessarily
yeah,
even getting feedback from them on how the approach
yes,
you should use and all that. So you
yeah,
are testing a solution maybe, and you're like, yeah, I
yes,
think this is your problem, this is the solution, and then some of these
yes,
projects just fail because you didn't
yeah,
involve the community. But I guess like for you guys, you found a way to involve them, and at this point
yes,
it's like it's their thing. There's that sort of ownership on their end,
yes.
so it kind of makes things easier for you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
And honestly, for me, I think it's one of those things that I am super proud about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That was a big
yeah,
win. Mm-hmm.
it was.
Uh-huh. Damn.
It
Yeah, like,
was. Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah. I loved it. Yeah,
Oh
it was
wow.
good.
Interesting,
Yeah,
interesting. So let me ask, at this point, you started CECI, you said in 2017. You are so
yeah,
young and with such an ambitious dream. Did you
yeah.
ever feel like did you ever have like an imposter syndrome? You know, sometimes as young people,
Mm-hmm,
we have these
mm-hmm.
big dreams, and then there's days you wake up, you're like, am I sure? Is it gonna work? So maybe you get like that
Yeah,
imposter syndrome, and you start
Yeah.
doubting the whole process. Did you ever experience these? And if so, or if not, like what was sort of like your support system, either within the organization or outside the
Right.
organization, that sort of made the very foundation of CECI become like
Mm-hmm.
something so solid that it exists
Mm-hmm.
up to now, and the impact the organization has had has been explosive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so did
Well,
you? Mm-hmm,
so one thing I will always credit Cersei for,
mm-hmm.
I think, is that Cersei saved me,
Wow.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, because I think that it helped me to into a journey of self discovery that I had
mm-hmm,
never embarked on.
mm-hmm,
Like literally, um, I got to truly realize what I was most passionate about. Like the
mm-hmm,
thing that I knew for sure that, oh yes, this is the kind of thing I want to do, and it's the
mm-hmm,
thing I would be super happy to do for the rest of my life. And I
mm-hmm,
and this is really like the humanitarian work, like being
mm-hmm,
able to provide the much needed support when it is needed, and
mm-hmm,
being able to be there with the community in developing all these solutions, and then being
mm-hmm,
able to see the results,
mm-hmm.
um, and being able to see people really happy, because like very proud we worked on this thing and it worked out, and this, being able to
Uh-huh.
see that is just so fulfilling.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, and I think like it just helped me realize that,
mm-hmm.
oh no, it's not actually law school that I love most. I probably just loved it because
Uh-huh.
I probably loved it just because maybe my brother, uh, very close friend of mine, and may he rest in peace,
Mm-hmm.
was a lawyer and always encouraged me to pursue that. And I thought like, oh
Ah.
no, I think that was
Mm-hmm,
just like me pursuing his dream that he had for me.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think this is truly what I want.
Uh-huh.
So I think that really it saved me a lot
Mm-hmm,
in that sense, as in I
mm-hmm,
got to actually discover that bit of myself,
mm-hmm,
um, yeah, through my work. And so regarding like imposter syndrome and maybe support systems and things like that,
mm-hmm,
I think that I don't know for other people, because I know a lot of my friends
mm-hmm,
who have started really organizations that are really flourishing.
mm-hmm,
Um, but I think for me, what I struggled with most had to do with the kind of skills that I needed to learn,
mm-hmm,
because this is an entirely new field for me. I didn't
mm-hmm,
I didn't have the resources and the knowledge and
mm-hmm,
the technical know-how for the field.
mm-hmm,
And so while other people maybe like got into the field from a
mm-hmm,
certain point where they had a relatively maybe good knowledge about the
mm,
field, that
mm-hmm,
was not my story.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, mine was entirely different. I
mm-hmm,
didn't have that, and so I had to get all of this stuff
mm-hmm,
afresh,
mm-hmm,
learn them afresh. So it was a lot of like learning and so forth,
mm,
um, that I had to do.
mm-hmm,
And I am incredibly grateful to my friends. Like people like Jacksana,
mm-hmm,
uh, people like Romeo, the brother of Jacksana, Barnabas, and
mm-hmm,
so many guys like at CDC,
mm-hmm,
and even Wiser. I don't know if you know
mm-hmm,
this organization. Like my friends there as well, I think they have been incredibly supportive in this journey, in terms of
mm-hmm,
like giving advice,
mm-hmm,
um, resources, and things like that. And
mm-hmm,
even like, including introducing us to networks and things like that. I think like
Mhm.
those guys have really, their support helped me stay on course.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I
That's
think like
amazing.
yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's really good to have that small, close knit community, and they were fun.
Mhm.
It was nice working with them, collaborating with them, and so many other things. They're amazing guys. I
Uh-huh.
love those guys. I love them so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Your community sounds like the birds of the same feather flock together, because I know some of them. So it's like all of you guys are involved in community work, you know. It's
no,
it's truly amazing.
no, those guys are fantastic. Those
Mhm.
guys are super amazing. They're doing really some stuff that, when I look at it, I'll be like, damn,
Mhm.
never could have done that.
Mhm. And that's
They're really doing
impressive.
amazing work.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh
And,
wow.
and I think for me, like, I draw inspiration to keep
Mhm.
moving on from
Mhm.
this community
Mhm.
that have been there to support, provide advice, and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, and also from the community that we work with and the staff that I work with and stuff. I told
Mhm.
you about our driver, who's been
Yeah.
like an incredible
Mhm.
person, I think, in really like keeping us on course and things like that. I
Mhm.
mean, someone else would never think that a driver would be
Mhm.
such a valuable member of
Mm.
a team. For
Mhm.
our case, oh
Mhm.
my God, our driver was fantastic. He didn't
Mhm.
just know how to drive, he knew a lot of strategic and technical
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Uh-huh. Ah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I had all this, huge community that I could lean on for support
Mm.
and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And then I think for me, that helped keep me on course.
Mhm.
But I think if there's really something that kind of challenged, if whether this is something I would want to continue with,
Mhm.
actually had to do with the team. So
Mhm.
when I started CECI Uganda,
Mhm.
it was just an idea.
Mhm.
Um, it was an idea I had, I shared with my friend Ricky. I
Mhm.
hope Ricky gets to hear this actually.
Mhm.
uh, I shared this with Ricky. He was in South Sudan at the time, and
Mhm.
I was like, hey, I have this idea. I want to do ABCD and things like that. And he was like, you know what? Go for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, if there's something of interest, go for it. And so
Oh, wow.
I did. And I needed advice from some other guy,
Mhm.
people who have actually been in the field. And there was this one guy that I really admired. He's been
Mhm.
doing this for a long time. He's like
Mhm.
a household name.
Mhm.
And I reached out to this guy, and he was like, "It's a good idea. You need a team
Mhm.
and stuff like that." So
Uh-huh.
he was not like the very talkative type, but
Mhm.
I think he gave some valuable insight. And so I was like, "Okay, I need a team," because I was only
Mhm.
myself. I was
Mhm.
like, "Okay, I need a team," so I had to assemble a team,
Mhm.
and that was where everything else went and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But where it became an issue was when some of these team members started falling off
Mm.
one by one by one
Oh,
by
wow.
one.
Mhm.
Yeah, until there was only two of us.
Ah. Oh, wow. The team was not teaming anymore. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And I think for me that if there's something that I would say really challenged my decision
Mhm.
or challenge at least like our why on whether actually
Mhm.
this is really something we want to do. I think was that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, because these people getting falling off and so forth. And yeah, it was only the two of us. And I'm glad that we kept it. We never gave up, pushed on.
Mm.
Yeah, to now, I don't know, supporting like over 178,000 people.
Mhm. Wow.
Incredible. Never thought of it.
Oh, wow. That's impressive. Actually, I think my next question was on the impact. Like, so far, do you have like how the numbers of like how many people you've supported? Because I was checking like the last report you guys released,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
supported a lot of people in 2023, I think 2022, 2023. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, it was like a very impressive, comprehensive report.
Thank
And
you.
so, do you have like sort of a number from when you started CC to now? How many people you've sort of directly impacted?
Um, so from when we started CECI,
Mm-hmm.
um, in 2017 to now,
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
we right now we have impacted over 178,410 people.
Wow, that's huge.
I never forget that. Yeah,
Wow. That's I think if I was in your shoes, I would not forget to. That's impressive. Like, oh my God. Like from a small idea to want to change something for people, to
yeah,
make a difference, to bring about peace building initiatives,
yeah,
offer education, bridge the
yeah,
gap, and now to 100 over 178,000. That's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
impressive,
And
honestly.
it is, and that's only
Mhm.
for 2017 to 2023. And so
Wow.
we've not
So
taken
we are not
into
talking about
account 2024.
2024. Yeah.
No.
I think if you add 2024, it's like over 200K. That's like really good numbers, honestly. I'm super proud of you, of your team,
Yeah, thank
and
you.
how far you guys have seen like sort of this vision. Do you ever sit maybe with especially with the scholarships that you offer for education or the gaps you're trying to bridge, whether informal or formal education, do you ever sit and feel like it's like your dreams being realized in the we you have
Mm,
participants like people you sponsor and
yeah,
all that. Do you ever
yeah.
ever feel like those are your dreams being fulfilled through them? Like it's like you've planted a seed and you see it flourish, and like how does that make you feel?
I I think for me, so first of all, although unlike my parents and
Mm-hmm.
grandparents
Mm-hmm.
that were completely deprived of education, whereas I
Mm-hmm.
got I I I faced so many educational disruptions just like them because of the
Mm-hmm.
war.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas for them they got completely deprived of education, as in totally not there.
Mm-hmm.
My case is different. I still found ways to go to school um, and go to university. I still go that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think when I see these young people out of school, youth, and
Mm-hmm.
children going to school and accessing scholarships and
Mm-hmm.
accessing educational resources that I once had no access to, I think for me,
Mm-hmm.
I see the dreams of my grandparents and my parents being fulfilled in
Oh,
them. And that makes me happy.
that's so good. that's
Yeah.
that's amazing, honestly. Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn,
I,
interesting.
yeah. I think like my they 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 would my parents my grandparents would have sacrificed anything to see us
Mm-hmm.
go to school,
Mm-hmm.
and they are such generous people that would have sacrificed anything to see the
Mm,
children of the neighbor go to school.
mm, mhm,
Yeah, and so for me, being able to see all these so many young people from the refugee community and the horseshoe community going to school,
Mhm.
I think it's something that they would have loved and appreciated and would have done probably even way better than I could do or CECI
Mm.
could do. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Interesting. Oh wow.
Hmm.
So on this journey you've been on of creating impact, changing lives and all that, how do you what would you say, how has it sort of shaped your outlook in life, for example?
Hmm. Hmm. That's a good one. No, I think that if there's anything that
Mhm.
the experience
Mhm.
has helped me look at is that it's okay to take risks. It's okay
Mhm.
to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Um,
Mm.
because I think for me, that is what it really did.
Mhm.
Uh, from being in this really comfortable space where you don't have to worry about anything, because that was what
Mhm.
it felt like at the
Mhm.
family business. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, you're
Mm.
doing the thing that you're most familiar with, you're the best at
Yeah.
it.
Uh-huh.
And so you're totally okay.
Mhm.
It can give you the illusion that
Mm.
you have everything
Ah.
and you get so comfortable that sometimes
Mhm.
you do not explore other horizons.
Mm.
And so for me, when I got out of there,
Mhm.
I think it helped me like to embark on the journey of rediscovering myself.
Ah.
Yeah, it did
Interesting.
that for me. Yeah,
Mhm.
I got to discover what I was most passionate about,
Mhm.
what I genuinely loved doing effortlessly,
Yeah.
uh, which is the work I'm doing now. You know,
Uh-huh.
supporting communities and things like that is something I think
Mhm.
I have got to discover that is the thing I love
Mhm.
most. Yeah, and it helped me step out of my comfort zone. I think for
Mm.
me, if if there's something is that it has helped me embrace the
Mhm.
uncomfortable zone.
Ah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because I have noticed that it is where growth happens. It's where
Mhm.
learning
Mhm.
happens. It's where
Mhm.
you can rediscover yourself.
Mhm.
It's where
Mhm.
you can rebuild yourself. So
Mhm.
yeah, and I think like really it has shaped my outlook on life in that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, but also I think now look at things a little bit more different. Not like being brought up because like I don't know how this was for you in Kenya and with your family, but for us, you're being
Mhm.
brought up and told almost consistently that you either need to be a lawyer, you need to be either a doctor, or you need to be.
Same, same. Yes, that's very typical African. Uh-huh.
It's like you need to be an engineer and there's nothing else
Mhm.
as if you can do.
Mm.
Like our parents are just how to think of it, to think of careers in that
Yeah.
sense. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, you can't almost see something
Mhm.
else outside of these three or four or five
Mm.
things.
Mhm.
Yeah, which for them, I like for you to actually be educated, you need to be one of those.
No, and sadly, even with schools, even now, I think that was emphasized because I remember even when I was in high school, that was
Yeah.
emphasized a lot at some point, and especially with our school, the way it was competitive and we
Hmm.
had like high performers, high achievers. It felt like
Yeah.
if you didn't become like those things, a doctor or whatever, it's as if
Yeah.
your life has come to an end.
Yes. It's like you're a loser.
Yeah, it is definitely. We
Yeah.
need to demystify that more often. especially for students
Absolutely.
going through the system right now.
Absolutely. And for
Mm-hmm.
parents too. I mean,
Yes.
you will be
Mm-hmm.
shocked. You would
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
that right now that we have so much information, um, most of our, at least most parents,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not most, but a significant portion of parents
Mm-hmm.
today are educated. They have
Mm-hmm.
some education, um,
Mm-hmm.
probably not the most percentage, but at least a
Mm-hmm.
significant portion of that. But you would be
Mm-hmm.
surprised that even
Mm-hmm.
in that portion
Mm-hmm.
that is educated, there is still
Mm-hmm.
that sentiment where they actually push
Mm.
people
Mm-hmm.
to specific, like career paths that they think are the first. And it's not like it's a bad thing. It's not a
Yeah.
bad thing, but I think
Mm-hmm.
you should probably allow someone to just explore
Yeah.
what they want and
Mm-hmm.
then go for what interests them the most. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I was shocked to discover this because I would think like this is an African thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come here
Mm-hmm.
and then I go to school with some Canadians,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them ask them like, "Why are you doing this program?
Uh-huh.
And why are you in this school?"
Mm-hmm.
And then they'd be like, my parents in 80 or 90 something came to this school,
Mm-hmm.
and so for them, it's a family tradition, so we have to come to this school, and so I've come to stay here. I was like, "Oh,
Oh.
that's great." Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like a bad thing. If what I want to study that interests me the most is in the school that my
Yeah.
parents went to, I think I would
Mm-hmm.
gladly go there
Mm-hmm.
and study there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wouldn't feel bad,
Mm-hmm.
like at least, yeah. But there are some of them that actually doing programs that
Mm.
they are not interested in.
Oh.
They are just doing it because the parents wanted them to do it.
Oh. I've seen
Yeah,
people in Kenya do degrees and then they're like, yeah, here's a degree. Now I'm gonna go do whatever I want.
exactly. There's
It's
actually a
really
student here.
bad. Uh-huh.
There's a student here I know who did
Mm-hmm.
exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the parents
Wow.
wanted him to do engineering, and so he came.
Mm-hmm.
Did engineering, performed
Uh-huh.
so well,
Uh-huh.
really good, and then
Wow.
now went to do the exact thing he's most interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Damn. Interesting. Interesting. Oh wow. Wow.
yeah.
You've
So
had
that
uh-huh.
that
You've
thing
had
still is there.
uh-huh. You had quite a journey. Like, what would you say has sort of been like your biggest challenge with this decision that you made from, quitting working at the studio and starting a whole organization that has had so much impact? What has sort of been like your biggest challenge?
Mm, uh, I would think that my biggest challenge actually does not come from the organization, although there are so many challenges I did experience. I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, my biggest challenge came from taking the decision to quit
Mm-hmm.
the family business to now focus on my own things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it really created a rift, like a serious rift
Mm, mm-hmm.
between me and my family.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah, particularly my uncle. Oh my God.
At this point he's like, you're so good at this. Why are you leaving?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And I think like, he
Mm-hmm.
really didn't want me to leave. Yeah.
Mm.
And honestly, if he was paying me well, I probably wouldn't have left.
Should we thank God he didn't pay you well? Because at least we get to see the rest of your journey unfold.
Oh man, yeah. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, it kind of created a real serious rift
Mm-hmm.
between ourselves,
Mhm.
that I really had to work extra harder to
Mhm.
mend that relationship. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, because him leaving the
Wow.
family business was like, yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, no one had ever done that before. So,
Mhm.
me getting to do that was very strange. I was an
Yeah.
outlier. Yeah,
I see. Yeah. Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think eventually, he got to terms with it. He got to terms
Uh-huh.
that I was doing other things I loved to do. He didn't understand what I was doing, but he knew I
Mhm.
was doing something.
Mhm.
Yeah, and to his credit,
Mhm.
although we had that rift and stuff like that,
Mhm.
I think at certain point he got to understand that what, he is big enough. He can take care of
Mhm.
himself. Yeah, if he's
Ah.
chosen to do everything,
Uh-huh.
let him just go do it. Yeah, I think at some
Yeah.
point he
Uh-huh.
got to understand that, and
Mhm.
once he did, to his
Mhm.
credit, this is
Mhm.
really something that I actually won't forget about my uncle. Is
Mhm.
um, he gave us his space, the studio space,
Oh wow.
as our first office space for CECI Uganda.
Oh wow. Oh
Yeah.
wow.
So when we had a visit by our first donors,
Mhm.
the space that we were
Mhm.
using as our office
Mhm.
space was the
Mhm.
studio of my uncle.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he was like, you know what, you guys are donors? Yeah, for sure. Say
Mm.
this is your studio, and you organize the space for me and say
Mhm.
this is your working space.
Mhm. I'm sure you did spark something in him when he saw you like succeed and all that. At that point, he's like, "Yeah, if there's any help I can offer him,
Yeah,
that must have been impressive, and maybe on his part, he must have been very proud."
I think so. Yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
so. Yeah. Um, yeah, he that support meant
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It helped show a very vibrant, organized young organization led
Mm-hmm.
and founded by refugees themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we had an incredible discussion. And, we
Mm-hmm.
ended up getting the project.
Ish, that's good.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow. Hmm.
Yeah. And, we put our issues behind us and eventually came back and we were staying together with my uncle. So
Uh-huh.
we would go like eat food together, have fun together. It was crazy times.
Uh-huh. Wow. Uh wow. I would say
Yeah.
I'm really inspired. You've had like sort of quite I can't believe like one decision to just quit a job led you
Yeah.
here to see the impact you've had, the lives that you guys have transformed, the
Right.
growth with the organization, where you are
Right.
headed. The last year, I think towards the end of the year, I saw you post like you got like sort of a lot of grants to do your projects. For me,
Yeah.
I would look at it and I was amazed at how much such like a small decision can
Yeah.
lead to such big impact. Maybe what would you tell our viewers or listeners wherever they are, like what is that one thing you would want them to take away from this conversation, apart from the fact that your journey has been so inspiring and I hope that they're inspired.
Honestly, for me, if
Mm-hmm.
if there's something that I think I would want anyone else to probably learn is that you need to become comfortable with the being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, it really worked. Like there are so many things that we we want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they're not the kind of things that really like are easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they require you to do so much, put in so
Yeah.
much work, and something
Uh-huh.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those stuff are actually worth it.
Mhm.
If anything, actually, you should put more effort into such kind of work or activity that you're doing,
Mm. Mhm.
because eventually, in the long run, it really does pay off.
Mhm.
Yeah, you get to learn new skills, even if the process is messy.
Mhm.
You get to learn from it.
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
you get to learn from the process, enjoy it,
Mhm.
and eventually it becomes
Mhm.
seamless to do.
Mm.
Yeah. And so
Interesting.
I think
Mhm.
for me, like, people should really become comfortable with being uncomfortable,
Mhm.
because that is where self discovery happens. It is
Oh
there
wow.
that
That's
growth
key.
happens. It's there that you get to
Uh-huh.
learn new skills, because
Uh-huh.
you got to do this thing.
Uh-huh.
You don't have the skills. And because
Mhm.
you really want to do it, you're forced to
Mhm.
learn. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, so there's something, probably an example of this is, you know, you work with a non-profit organization,
Mhm.
and this, like, fundraising
Mhm.
is a huge part of what makes organizations exist. Oh,
Yes.
it's the lifeline of the
Mhm.
organization, because it brings in
Yes.
the actual lifeline, which is the
Uh-huh.
money that you need
Uh-huh.
to pay
Mhm.
your staff, implement your programs, and so much more.
Mm.
So, but I wasn't engaged in any fundraising.
Oh wow.
I didn't have any knowledge of that before.
Uh-huh.
And what I am getting into requires
Mhm.
me to do that.
Fundraising. Yeah.
Yeah, especially grant writing.
Ah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, like,
Mhm.
you have to learn how to do that.
Mm.
And so at that time,
Mhm.
I really did have like a laptop or something. I had there's this Techno,
Mhm.
not Techno the musician, but Techno
Ah.
the phone.
Yes, the phone, yes. Uh-huh. I almost thought it's the musician. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Those, I think they're like Chinese phones. I'm not very sure.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think they're Chinese phones. Yeah. So I had a Techno 7. It's like
Mhm.
it's like the size of this phone, actually, that I'm using
Mhm.
currently. So
Mhm.
I use that phone
Mhm.
to learn grant writing from Yali online.
Oh
Yes.
wow. Ah, Yali
Yeah,
has amazing courses. Uh-huh.
I know. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I use that, learned it entirely on my phone. And our
Wow.
first concept note, I wrote it
Mhm.
also the same thing on my phone,
Wow.
and stuff like that.
No
So,
excuse. Uh-huh.
oh no, no excuse. Like,
Mhm.
again, which is why I'm saying that you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because
Mhm.
you can't tell me writing a proposal here is comfortable on your phone, and you're writing a number of pages.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. True.
Yeah, let alone learning the skill and so forth. So I think it's
Mhm.
really important that people do that. Yeah, and if there's another thing for sure for me is, I think, do not be afraid to take that decision. Doesn't matter
Mm.
what the decision is.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because you can never be sure, like 100% sure of whether the decision
Mhm.
you're taking is actually right.
Yeah.
Like, if it's going to lead to this, like,
It's gonna be life changing.
yeah, it's going to
Uh-huh.
lead to a future of basically, roses and Mary and
Uh,
stuff like that.
uh-huh.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you can never fully tell,
Mhm.
but I think it's okay to take the risk. Yeah,
Mm.
because when I decided to quit, I really didn't know what I was going to do next.
Mhm.
Yeah, no idea, not a tiny idea.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but eventually you you get exposed to things. You get to see other things you never have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, seen, and so you learn from the process, and the things evolve, and so do you. You evolve
Mm.
in
Mm-hmm.
response, and
Yeah.
before you know it, you're doing some stuff that you never could have imagined you doing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting. I think that's like very insightful. Um, I would say from my end, I'm hearing take risks, make that decision, be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's yeah, and it's amazing how as you said, like making just one decision can change the whole trajectory of your life and put
yes,
a lot of things in motion. And reflecting on what your journey has looked like, I think even for me, I would encourage people out here to, to pursue those things they so much desire with a lot of passion, like you've done. Because
yeah,
even if you're not so sure about the future, but it can be the decision that makes a whole lot of difference, and in a positive way actually. Because for you, your journey, apart from the fact that it changed your life, it has
yeah,
changed the lives of 178,410 people.
absolutely.
Yes. So it's not, sometimes it's not just about us. It's about even the people around us. So yeah, make that decision. Yeah. Thank you. Honestly, thank you for sharing your journey with us at the Spark It podcast. I hope I hope this conversation does, sort of spark something in the lives of the people who are listening to us, and they take those risks and become uncomfortable, comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah, it's been amazing hosting you. Thank you. Do you have any
Thank
last
you.
words?
Uh, for the audience,
Mhm. Yeah, maybe for
mm,
the audience, or we are just wrapping it up. Yeah.
no, I think it will be act now.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a business you're thinking of starting, start it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't wait for everything to be perfect to start it.
Yeah.
If it's a podcast, start it.
Uh-huh.
You're going to learn along the process. You will make mistakes and so forth. It's
Yes.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Start it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a
Uh-huh.
scholarship you want to apply for,
Uh-huh.
start applying for scholarships.
Mhm,
Doesn't You
mhm,
will get rejected so many times, but you will
mhm,
also be learning every single time.
mhm.
So keep applying. You never know, you'll get it.
Yes.
If it's a job,
Uh-huh.
go for it. Just apply. If
Uh-huh.
there's anything is for me, act
Uh-huh.
now.
Act
Yeah,
now. Wow.
yeah,
Too much
like
wisdom
literally.
from one person. No, this is so good. I'm happy to hear all these, honestly. It's true.
Thank you, Kimaru baby.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, for joining us for this episode and for sharing your story. It's been the Spark It podcast. Thank you to our listeners and viewers. Follow us on our social media platforms. We are actually everywhere at the Spark It podcast, and also maybe leave a review, share our podcast episodes with your loved ones and people in your communities. Yeah, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.